Whenever the administration has spoken about problems on the ground that they don't like, it's been talk, no action. No one has stood up and said, my dear friends in Israel, if you persist in this course of action, I'm going to have to withdraw U.S. forces from the area.
Should Joe Biden do that? Should he pick up the phone and tell that to Netanyahu in an effort to stop the slaughter in an hour?
That he could, and I think he probably should. I think he should essentially say, "Look, we've come as far with you as we can. You know, we have moral obligations. We are not insensitive to the sufferings of people who may not be Israelis, who are in fact Arabs, Muslims, and Christians. We're not siding against you. We're simply telling you that we've come as far as we can. We cannot move any further." I think Israelis in the past have heard that argument. They haven't always liked it, but I think they understand it. Mr. Netanyahu has never heard that. I don't think he will from this administration. I think whatever they say publicly is just irrelevant. They're going to stay the course and try to give the Israelis the time to wipe out Gaza as a living space for the people that were there, and try to herd whoever survives into Egypt or somewhere else.
Colonel, if what the Israeli military is doing in Gaza is a war crime, in my view it is, you're on the military side, I'm on the legal side, and if it's being done with the knowledge, consent, and support of the American government, and if it's being done with American weapons and ammunition, is not the American administration as liable for war crimes as is the Israeli?
I suppose you could make that argument, but as we said from the very beginning, it's meaningless. We're not a signatory to a whole range of treaties that would involve this. We don't support the International Court of Justice in The Hague. You could find plenty of reasons to prosecute Americans for things that were done in Iraq and probably Afghanistan. We're not signatories. We don't believe it. We don't support it. It's never going to happen. So I think the question is not relevant, Judge, to be perfectly blunt.
Well, we are signatories to the UN Charter, which we wrote. We are signatories to the Geneva Conventions, which we wrote. So these are basic rules of behavior for the military, and they prohibit the active, aggressive support of what the Israeli Defense Forces are doing, and we're supporting it.
But the argument that will be launched in your direction is a very straightforward one. What are we supposed to do about the building that was destroyed? What are we supposed to do about these things? Now, you brought up the 2,000-pound bombs dropped on a refugee camp. That's a much different animal, let's face it. But having said that, in the rest of these things, you're going to do whatever is in the interest of your force to minimize your losses. And you try not to kill civilians who happen to be there. But you're going to get the argument, well, if they had any sense, we warned them to leave, they shouldn't have been there. And I just don't think that you can make that argument in a court of law against the Israeli Defense Force.
Well, I don't think this is ever going to get to a court of law, primarily because it just doesn't work that way. There are these problems. Is Vladimir Putin going to be prosecuted in the ICC? Of course, the International Criminal Court. Of course not. But when you talk about right and wrong and common decency and morality, the Israelis have lost that argument, have they not?
Oh, I think if they haven't lost it, they're losing it pretty fast. Now, what's really reprehensible to me, though, are the people that say, well, they're winning on the ground, but they're losing the moral high ground. I don't see how you can do one and not the other. You know, it's incomprehensible to me. If you're losing the moral high ground, then whatever fight you're pushing is not going to work anyway. And again, this is my point at the beginning. In this sort of no holds bar, we've had it. Gaza has to go. The people there have been a permanent threat to us. We're not going to tolerate this anymore. They've all got to go. That is the end of any future relationship that Israel could possibly have with anyone in the region. That's the problem. There is no way forward after that. And at some point, and I can't predict when, the region will rise up and they are going to have a tough time surviving it.
Over the weekend, an op-ed appeared in Washington Post with the president's signature on it, in which he stated effectively, I think I'm summarizing him fairly, we are wedded at the hip to Israel. We are their greatest ally. Oh, by the way, we want a two-state solution. Now, you talk about not being able to have it both ways. I mean, this is inconceivable with the present government of Israel, is it not?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that Mr. Netanyahu set out to permanently destroy, Judge, the two-state solution. I see
Right.
no evidence for that in the future at all. And since we know that the two will never live together within the framework of one state, well, it's over. This is now a war between two implacable enemies, and neither will ever reconcile with the other.
So when Prime Minister Netanyahu said the Israel will provide the security for Gaza, that's not what he wants. He doesn't want to run Gaza, to govern Gaza. He wants the Palestinians gone so that Israel can be extended to the Mediterranean. And he views this as the opportunity to do it. And by the way, as long as the war keeps going, he stays in office and he stays a free man.
Well, the last point is one that you've made frequently, and I just don't know enough about him to make that assumption. I have to believe that whatever he is, he's an Israeli patriot. I think he believes he's acting in the interest of his people and his country. Now, as far as the rest of it is concerned, you're correct. This is over, and what you will have is Israeli security in Gaza, and it won't be a giant problem because there won't be anybody there who's an Arab.
Is there life beyond revenge?
Well, someone said, if you're going to embark on revenge, you'd better dig two graves.